Good afternoon and welcome inside of our Scranton Wilkes-Barre studios here at PNC Field as we are set to make some sports history Northeast PA style. We are going to honor the greatest of the great, the best of the best through all three regimes that have come through Northeast PA and modern pro baseball history. We will honor the top Red Baron of all time, the top Scranton Wilkes-Barre Yankee of all time, and of course the modern incarnation, your very own Scranton Wilkes-Barre RailRiders. My name is John Sadak. I'm joined by an esteemed panel of guests, SWB analysts, and Donnie Collins of the Scranton Times-Tribune, who served on this year's selection committee. The winner of each tournament, a 16-name bracket for the Red Barons, an 8-name bracket for the Scranton Wilkes-Barre Yankees, and a 4-name bracket for the RailRiders, will forever live in famous history as a figurine. That's right, a statue of some sort will be made of the victor in each of those fields and will be given away at a RailRiders game at some point this year. Who will win? You will decide via social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and online through the RailRiders website at swbrailriders.com. Of course, there were many names, and certainly in the Red Barons era, that is the longest length of history, hence the biggest tournament with 16 different men cracking the field. Some notable names had to be left off. The selection committee has just wrapped things up, and we are now set to reveal the number one overall seed in the Red Barons bracket. And that number one seed, who achieved great success both here in Northeast Pennsylvania and beyond in the big leagues, Chase Utley. Chase Utley, the number one seed in the Red Barons bracket. And for more, we welcome in a member of our selection committee. In fact, the selection committee chairman, Donnie Collins of the Scranton Times-Tribune. Donnie, welcome. Your thoughts?
First of all, thanks for having me on after a long morning in the conference room. My thoughts are that Chase Utley, in a very tight race, was the best player ever to play for the Red Barons. In 2002, when the Red Barons won 92 games, a franchise record, he was the man in the middle of the lineup, the doubles hitter, the guy driving in a lot of the runs, and that was his first AAA season. He got better from there. In 2003, he had a big season. He carried the Red Barons that year, actually, to pretty big heights. I mean, I believe his winning percentage when he was in the lineup with the Red Barons was about .750. So that team was winning a lot of games because of Chase Utley in the lineup, and that was not a team that made the playoffs.
The question becomes, who does Utley face? That is not a matchup that I would want to have in the first round. We're going to go blast from the past. Keith Miller, the all-star on the first ever Red Barons team, probably the best player on that squad. And we welcome in our esteemed panel of experts for their thoughts as we begin to break down this bracket. Chase Utley against Keith Miller. That is a first-round matchup. Your thoughts, Curtis Fair?
Well, to be completely honest, I think Chase Utley, his career is not even close to Keith Miller. I think this is going to be a complete blowout, landslide victory in the favor of Chase Utley.
Yeah, being from the area, I remember seeing Chase Utley play. Phenomenal talent, and I don't think this is even close.
Now for the rest of the bracket, the number 3 seed, another huge name in the history of Scranton Wilkes-Barre baseball, Ryan Howard, the most prolific home run hitter. He was here for a decent amount of time and went on to great big league success with the Philadelphia Phillies. He will be taking on the 14 seed John Zuber, a 3-time All-Star, longtime fan favorite, and a man who could get a lot of votes out of the bottom tier of this year's bracket. As for the 4 seed, Shane Victorino had an MVP-like season here with the Scranton Wilkes-Barre Club. Of course, had outstanding World Series success this year with the Boston Red Sox. He will be taking on the 13 seed Floyd Rayford, a fan favorite in the inaugural season, known as a great guy and a name that still lives on in many ways with baseball fans in Northeast PA. The 5 seed will be Jimmy Rollins, terrific player in 2011, went on to become an all-star and a longtime Philly. He has been the face of the franchise in so many ways for the big club. He will be taking on a 12 seed Mickey Morandini, fan favorite, good player, great name as well. What will happen with Jimmy Rollins and Mickey Morandini, Lockhorns? You will decide that. The 6th seed, you knew the name would be on here. He checks in at 6th, Greg Legg, a star in the early years who has stayed in the area. He is still in the Phillies organization, coaching most recently with low Class A Lakewood, and was a big part of the big reveal for the RailRiders' new name and branding. This is a tough matchup because he'll take on perhaps the best catcher of the Red Barons era, Mike Lieberthal, longtime Philly, pretty darn good for the Red Barons as well, and was here for multiple years. Keep in mind there are multiple criteria that were used in selecting and seeding these players. The 7 seed, much like the 6, Greg Legg, a man with ties to the region. Andy Ashby, a star like Legg, who stayed in this region but had big league success with other organizations. He will be taking on the 10 seed Jay Baller, the closer on the 1992 team. Everybody remembers Jay Baller, and with a name like that, he might get some votes from kids who never saw him play either. As for the 8-9 matchup, David Doster, terrific all-around player, essentially a quad A player for a long time, had some connections to the area, and might have stayed here for a decent amount of time. He'll take on Gene Shaw, big home run hitter, perhaps the biggest one before Ryan Howard's arrival. That will be the 8-9 matchup. Moving on, we now check in on the Scranton-Wilkes-Barre Yankees bracket, and certainly that's where rehabbers could come into play when you're dealing with the Yankees in the RailRiders era. But for the number 1 overall seed in the Scranton-Wilkes-Barre Yankees bracket, a man who's had big league success but was here as a minor leaguer, Shelley Duncan, the most prolific home run hitter among Yankees draft picks in the last decade. Shelley Duncan has had MVP success. He most recently was with the Durham Bulls last year, still playing in the IL, and is still a beloved figure in Northeast Pennsylvania. We once again turn to the Tournament Selection Committee Chairman, Mr. Donnie Collins, for commentary. The number 1 seed, Shelley Duncan. Your thoughts?
That was an easy one. If you want to break it into Red Barons, Yankees, and RailRiders and pick the number 1 seed from each, I think that the one you put in ink is the Yankees with Shelley Duncan. That was a big season in 2007, 2008 when fans were coming through the turnstiles and droves here, and they were, a lot of them were coming to see Shelley because he hit the most majestic home runs you'd see. For a right-handed hitter, he'd be challenging the mountain out there. He still owns the single season home run record. He'd approach 100 RBIs every year.
Let's break it down as we welcome in our SWB analyst. The 1-8 matchup as Shelley Duncan will take on Austin Jackson.
So I think this is another matchup similar to the Red Barons, that Shelley Duncan landslide victory over Austin Jackson. Number 1 seed again, guys, he's there for a reason. I think he takes the win here.
Shelley Duncan, I mean, obviously you heard the ovation when he came back with Durham this year. I don't think it's going to be close. I think it should be a closer vote, as if Austin Jackson wasn't traded for Curtis Granderson and was the Yankees center fielder right now, might be a different story.
The 2 seed in the SWB Yankees field, a man that you could make a case for, could be a high seed in 2 different tournaments. The manager, Dave Miley, who achieved outstanding success, including a Governor's Cup championship with the Scranton-Wilkes-Barre Yankees. He will take on a 7 seed who built up victories over many years, Kei Agawa. In the 3-6 matchup, Ivan Nova will take the 3 seed, and he will take on Brett Gardner. This is an outstanding matchup of rising young talent that has made impact in the Bronx. He will take on Brett Gardner. In the 4-5 matchup, an outstanding closer, the saves record holder for a single season, Jonathan Abaladejo, will take on a rehab assignment, one of the greatest rehab games in the history of the franchise, perhaps the best. Cops were atop horseback. It was not Wade Boggs celebrating a World Series. It was instead to see the Rocket Man, Roger Clemens, pitch right here in Northeast Pennsylvania. We move on now to the RailRiders bracket. This is the most recent one. The names stand out certainly all the more at the top of the list, but keep in mind that 73 different men played for the RailRiders in the 2013 season. The 1 seed, no surprise at all, the captain, Derek Jeter.
This is a contest with who resonates with the fans. And Jeter gets on this list as a rehab guy because he resonated with the fans. The Clemens game was a big deal. So, I mean, we had people up in the parking lot at the movie theater looking down on that. You didn't have that for Jeter, but you had Jeter for almost a week the first time, and then he comes back later in the season and he's there for a couple of games. And he played well, and he interacted with the fans well, and I think that, yeah, you can make a case that Derek Jeter was the face of the RailRiders last season, so he deserves that number 1 seed.
The 2 seed is Curtis Granderson, a name mentioned before, involved in the Austin Jackson trade with the Detroit Tigers, a philanthropist of the baseball world who is as giving and kind as he is prosperous and successful on the field of play. Granderson's competition will be another man who does a lot in the community, J.R. Murphy, who burst onto the scene, a ranked prospect at the catching spot, but overshadowed by men like Austin Romine entering the season. So there you have it, 3 brackets, 3 champions will be decided, and 1 man from each will live forever as the greatest of his era. Red Baron, Yankee, RailRider. Who will it be? You will decide. Go to Facebook, go to Twitter, go online to SWBRailRiders.com. Many thanks to our tournament selection committee and our esteemed analysts for their input today. You will make the ultimate decision. We'll see you online.